Hey guys, so another failed experiment. Well, kind of a failure. It works. You'll see anyway. Keep that in mind. Enjoy the video. Welcome back to Hoochos. Today, we're going to make the cheapest possible NFT hydroponic system. So I'm actually just going to be using stuff that I have lying around the house. The roof sheeting is brand new, but it came from a project that I just completed where I built myself a shed. And some of the poly fittings I actually had to purchase for specifically for this project. Uh, but other than that, I think the total cost of this project will be about 20 bucks, 30 bucks. So I haven't got the reservoir here. I've still got to figure out which one I'm going to use. Uh, but everything you see, I already had. I'll show you what you need. So today I'll be using some various sized PVC fittings and a length of PVC pipe, some treated hardwood. To put it together, we've got some timber batten screws and a hole saw that's 64 millimeters powered by a drill. You'll need a level and ColorBond trim deck, but you can use whatever brand you have available. This style is pretty much perfect because it has the ridge in the center, which will divert the water to the edges of the trim deck once it's in place. Some of the stuff that I actually had to buy to do today's job was this 4 millimeter flexible tubing, some 13 millimeter fittings, elbows and T-pieces, and some 13 millimeter poly pipe. And to convert it down, I've got some barbed offtakes just to get it to that 4 millimeter size so that it can go into the ends of the trim deck. So in addition to this, I'll probably be using a jigsaw to cut out some of the PVC, and I'll have some form of reservoir underneath, but you can just use whatever you've got lying around for that. All right, let's set the pickets to the length of the posts, make the post nice and level, and we'll move on to the next step. Now, as with all NFT systems, the slope you're aiming for here is anything greater than 3%. Um, you can have this almost vertical. If you have a smaller amount of space to work with, say like down the side of your house, you can have it up against a fence and running down, raised off the ground into the reservoir. I'm just doing it horizontal uh, to make it, you know, uh, a bit easier for the plants and give the plants a bit more room rather than having them grow out and up. So now I'm going to drill holes in the top sheets of the rail system. I'm going to drill holes every 30 centimeters, alternating between the left and the right hand side of the channel, so that when the water flows down each side, if the water is redirected by one set of roots from one plant, it will just travel over and hit the next plant in the progression down the rail. Let's do that. And now I'm just going to cut them all out with a hole saw. So just like any project, just prepare for the costs to blow out of proportion. So this actually might throw off the whole budget part of the system, but I broke the teeth on my hole saw, like in multiple places. So, right tool for the right job. this is meant to be a bimetal hole saw, but it was $20 for the kit. So to make my life easier, I'm going to use an impact bimetal hole saw specifically made for sheet metal. However, this is 40 Australian dollars. This is probably the most tedious part of the whole build that I didn't foresee. I thought that it'd just be a matter of beep, 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 just like the plastic, but you know, metal is metal. So this is a tedious part, and if you don't use the right tools, you're probably gonna just cause more hassle for yourself in the long run anyway, because there are some sharp shards of metal. And I'll have to go around these ones with a file, and I'm going to spray some primer on them as well, because they have eaten into the metal, and I don't want them to rust. The rest of this sheet is color bond, so it's pretty much rust proof, but these parts that I've cut into won't be. So I'm going to go ahead and drill the rest of the holes with this impact driver bit. Hopefully they're a lot easier, and we'll continue. Standard Bunnings intermission. That's so much easier. So much for impact bit. That's shorn off in my impact driver. Look at that. That's nuts. It's actually twisted the shaft. And now I can't get that out. The most expensive holes in here. So we're changing it from an impact driver to a drill with a hole saw, because apparently the impact bits that I was using aren't so great with impact drivers. Anyway, they didn't have any more of those sheet metal impact bits at Bunnings, so I'm now stuck with a hole saw, and it doesn't work with an impact driver anyway, so I'll be using it with a drill. This is harder than I thought it would be for such thin metal. What the hell? So that hole saw bit doesn't even bite. Like, I'm actually defeated by this. Uh, I've got most of the holes done, which is fantastic, so I'm just going to continue on. But unless you know of a better way to drill many holes in this sheet metal, stick to plastic rails. I'm going to build it because it's mostly done. So we'll see how it works, and if you decide it's worth the hassle, I warned you. Okay, now that we've got most of our holes drilled, the tops, and that they're all painted up, we can put the bottom part of the rail system on, and then we can screw it all down. Now I'm just going to pre-drill out the holes that are going to secure all of the sheets together into the wood cross beams. So now I'm going to make the guttering. I'm going to make it out of this 90mm pipe, and I'm just going to drill 2 or 3 63mm holes, which is more than wider than the guttering up here, and then cut between them with the jigsaw. The only thing that's gone right today. Nice. To hold the channel in place, I've just put a couple of screws along holding the PVC guttering to the NFT channels. So for this next part, you'll need a reservoir and a pump. Now I'm going to use this AquaPro AP1050 submersible water feature pump. It has a head of 120 centimeters and a maximum flow of 1400 liters per hour. It runs at 24 watts on 240 volts and has a maximum head height of 175 centimeters. I'll leave a link in the description for this pump because so many people have been asking me what pumps I use. This is the same pump that I use for my large NFT system, and it's been running for over a year, touch wood, without any hiccups. So this is just a temporary reservoir until I get a larger reservoir sorted for this, depending on how the system goes. And if the system doesn't perform to my liking, I can just use the frame for a standard pipe system. Anyway, so I'm going to make a 90mm hole in the top of this and a smaller hole for the cord, and then we can have our power, our 13mm tubing, and our 90mm tubing entering and exiting the top of the reservoir. All right, let's do it. I'm really sorry. I usually clean up my mess as I go, so you don't have like this pile of crap to look at, but this one's getting to me. So now all that's left to do, now that I've run the guttering, is I'm going to run the pump and irrigation line, similar to the way I ran my original system, but I'm going to run a line into each side of these channels. Let's do that. So I've drilled in the 4mm holes for the inlets for the 4mm piping. I've actually drilled them out to, I think that's 6mm. But I don't have enough barbed pieces to, make all of the inlets work. So I'll just add more on later on. That's just another fantastic part of this build. Anyway, so I'm actually going to mount this hosing underneath eventually, so that the pipe doesn't heat up in the sun. But for now, I'm just going to run straight out of this pipe into the rails. Just make holes for a 4mm barbs, pop them in, cut the 4mm tubing. All right, at least half of it's connected up. So now I'm gonna clean out the reservoir, fill it up, and we'll see what it looks like running. So now, I'm just gonna fill up the reservoir with water and we'll test how it runs. All right, she's full. Now we can just put the, no, I think there's one more thing we need. Oh. I've never deserved that more. Well, probably have, but it tastes bloody good right now. All right. Now I can put the lid on. Hey. Nice. All right. They're all running. Yep. So the gutter's working. It's all running down the gutter and back into the reservoir. I've got the end cap, so I'll just use an elbow for now, but I'm going to put an end cap on that. And as you can see, under each of the holes, there's like a trickle or a film of water that runs down its side. Right underneath the hole. And the plants will just go down along the channels and clip into the holes like on our NFT system. And there you go, a system that I wouldn't recommend building at all. In all honesty, I'm probably just going to convert this to a rail system. It was a really good idea in theory, but I mean, I just can't recommend that you go through what I just went through. The holes were really hard to drill, and you're going to spend more on hole saws than you are on PVC piping. And the channels, well, I feel like the water in the channels can divert from side to side too much, which could leave like a whole side of your row not receiving nutrients and water, which might just kill, half of the plants in a row. I like the idea because it really gave the nutrient solution a larger area to film over, but it also gives the nutrient solution opportunity to work its way away from the roots. Another thing is this is metal. I didn't think it'd be a problem because it's coated, it's bonded with paint on the bottom, and this part that I've cut isn't going to come into contact with the nutrient solution. But there's a reason why people use plastics for hydroponics. You are dealing with, ionic water, salty water. So you are going to get some sort of reaction with metal. So there's that. And it's just PVC is easier. So I'm going to give it a go for a bit. I'm going to plant some plants in here and we'll see how it works. But unless you can sort out that whole situation, uh, just stick with PVC guttering. Another disappointing Hoochos, but at least the system like works this time. There's no water leaks. Anyway, thanks for watching.